Making a pie does not have to be crazy difficult. I have a great recipe. I'm going to show you step by step how to do it, and I think you're going to find that it's the most delicious and easiest recipe you've ever tried. Since it's not peach season, we're going to start off with a bowl of frozen peaches that are already sliced and peeled, and I'm going to use tapioca as my thickener. That's my favorite form. I'm going to use about a 1/4 cup, and I'm going to put in about as much sugar. I don't want it too sweet for him. We're going to do that. We're going to let it sit for a while I make the pie crust. All right, so I've got my sugar and my tapioca on top. I decided to go ahead and put in a 1/2 cup of sugar, which is still less than what a normal recipe would call for, but I want it to be a little bit tart. So we're going to mix this together and let it sit while we do the pie crust now. Okay, we are going to start with 3 cups of flour in the bowl. This is a 1/2 cup measure. It doesn't need to be super accurate. So this is for a 2 crust pie. All right. And next we need salt. I put in about, what is that? A teaspoon and a half or so. Sorry, I'm not very good at measuring. Mix this together. This is something you will need. This is a pastry cutter. If you don't have one, then just use a butter knife. But this is better. Take a 1/2 cup of this out of the mix. Put it in a bowl to the side. Then I'm going to put a 1/2 cup of water in here. I'm going to mix it in with this one, okay? This works better than putting the water right into your dough because it allows the mixture to kind of absorb into the flour first, and you won't have so many problems later. One of the biggest issues with pie dough not being flaky and not working right is that it's actually over mixed. So you want to make sure that you don't have to mess with it very much. So this is one of the solutions. Have the water mixed in with a portion of the flour and salt mixture. Okay. Now, I am going to do about a cup of shortening. I only ever use Crisco. I've tried others and it's just not worth it. It never tastes as good. I'm terrible at measuring, so I look at it in the bowl. It needs to be about a big fistful, so that's good for me. And then I cut it in. Do not mix it with this thing, just press straight down. Press up against the walls. I really can't emphasize that enough. Do not mix it with this. Just kind of slide. I push over the shortening bits to where they need to be, but don't smear them. What we're trying to create is layers of shortening and flour. So we need the shortening to hold up its own space and not turn into a muddy mess. And I'll show you why in a minute. So I want to press this until there's not a whole lot of just plain flour left on the sides of the wall. These parts I keep pushing down here, scrape them off gently because like I said, I don't want to mix it. Okay. So this is what it's going to look like here. And now I'm going to add in my water and flour at this point. There's still a little bit of flour at the bottom of the bowl, so I'm mixing it up real quick. And we cut in again. Do not mix, only cut. My dough is just a little bit wet. I think I got a little full on my half cup of water there. So I added just a sprinkle of flour on top. And I'm cutting that in. And looking good. Okay, you guys, I was like, why is this not working? It's so sticky. I went back and rewatched the video and realized that I had not put in all the flour I was supposed to. So I just shook it just lightly in a little bit until it looked about where I wanted it to. So this is the beauty of pie dough. If you don't overmix it, then you have an opportunity to be able to fix it if you need to. So I just needed a little bit more. The video showed that I needed another cup, but I did not put that much in because I could tell that it was coming together nicely. What I want and what I'm looking for is a dough that is super soft, but is not wet. It's just nice and soft. Just has a powdering coat. So what I'm gonna do now, this is the first time I'm touching it with my hands. I'm gonna scrape off all the extra on the sides and I'm gonna pull it together. Now remember, this is for a 2 crust pie. So this is a top and a bottom in here. So I'm gonna grab a hold of a big chunk of this, probably about this much, and I'm gonna press it together. I am not going to squeeze it. I'm just gonna press, okay? Just pressing. Because it does need to come together. I just don't wanna squeeze it. Pressing, 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 okay? And you can see, if you can see that, you can see the swirls in there. That's what's gonna make it flaky. That's why I don't wanna squeeze it through my fingers. Now we make the other one. Pull it together. And I'm just pressing because I don't want it to fall apart when I start to roll it, right? But I also don't want it to be squeezed together so that I don't have any swirl and marbling, because that's what I really want the most of. Okay, we're ready to roll out. I'll show you how I do that. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna get my flour and flour my surface really well. Then I'm gonna take my ball and I'm gonna press it in my hands to flatten it first, okay? So that the roller doesn't destroy it. Again, I'm not squeezing it, I'm just pressing. So we're gonna keep all the marbling shapes that we want in there. Because I was lacking a little flour earlier, I'm probably over flouring this surface. I don't normally use quite so much flour, but I know my dough is lacking a little flour, so I'm gonna add it in. Look at that marbling, how pretty that looks. Okay. I use a marble roller with the pin taken out so that I can control it, and I just let the weight do all the work. Again, I'm gonna keep it well floured because I know my dough is lacking a little bit of flour. Roll it up on your pin, add more.
Again, I'm not pressing. I'm just using the weight of the marble to just roll it around in a circle. I do want it to come out in a circle shape though, so I do have to watch at the end here to make sure that I get it the right shape. We don't want too much left over. Okay, this is looking good. I'm gonna double check. Feels smooth to me. And you can see that it's gonna fit my pie dish just fine. So, I'll get my dish ready over here. I'm not sure how you can see that, but I'll have my dish right here. And see if that'll hold. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll this up very carefully. Okay, I'm just rolling it, lifting it up, and I'm just gonna lay it over. Remember, I know that it's bigger than my pan, so I'm gonna make sure some is hanging off the ends. Okay? I'm gonna let it drape down inside very carefully. Now, because this peach pie is gonna be juicy, I really would rather not have any cracks in this crust, because if there are cracks in this crust right now on the base, then it's going to leak out and burn underneath. I already know this from experience. So, okay, we got this done. Look how beautiful, you see the marbling? So the base is ready. Now we're ready for the upper crust. The upper crust I want to be pretty. What I always do is I make a little drawing of whatever type of pie that it's going to be, and I draw it onto the crust. So, here we go. I'll roll this out and then I'll come right back and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm just finishing up rolling out our upper crust. So again, I'm just pressing more flour underneath, adding flour on top as needed. Make sure it's not sticking to my roller. Now, because this is a peach pie, I know that I want to put a peach as a kind of a drawing, a knife cut drawing on the top of my pie dough, which is really helpful at Thanksgiving or other times when you're making a lot of different pies. Helps people know what pie that is. A lattice also works on that. Oops, so did you see what just happened? I just accidentally pulled that up. Don't worry about it, just roll it right back out again. And I'm gonna just pinch it here. This is the only time that you have my permission to pinch your dough. Pinch it back and press it down. And roll it gently. And it should be just fine. I should have had a little more flour underneath that, and that would not have happened. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna draw a peach on here. I'm gonna start with the leaf shape here. It's gonna come around. Let's make a peach. Gonna come in like a peach there. We've got our leaf. And we can make some little cross shapes on here. Now, the point of these, and this is important for each pie that you make, is to allow the steam to rise out of the pie, because you will be boiling these peaches. Basically, they'll be boiling inside of here with the juices and the tapioca. That's what will thicken it, is the boiling together with the sugar. So these will help it to vent out. Okay. All right, I've got our filling here. It's been sitting for these last, 15 minutes since we've been doing this. The sugar is starting to break down. It's okay if the tapioca is still in a granular form, because it is going to break down in the oven. So I'm going to pour it in here. All right, this is what it's looking like. I'm going to make sure these are kind of straight. I don't need it to be perfect, but I don't want it to poke a hole in my top of my crust. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now we put the top on. Okay, we're going to lift this up the same way that we lifted it up before. Going to just roll it on here very gently. Again, I'm not pressing. Now, because of the cutout, I want to make sure that I get all this up in one piece and that there's nothing left. Okay, and then again, I leave a little overhang. Okay, gonna even this up a little bit. And there we go. Now I'm ready to crimp my edges. This is how we do it. Actually, I'm going to cut a little bit off the edges first because it's a little bit big. So I'm just going to, right now I have both layers. I can feel both of them. I'm giving myself about an inch to the outside. I can feel the pie dish underneath my fingers. So there's at least an inch overhang here. Don't worry about these extras. We're going to put them in the oven too with some cinnamon and brown sugar and make some little crunchy treats. They're delicious. In fact, they're most everybody's favorite part. Okay, so press these edges together because you do not want your juices to be seeping out like I talked about before. Just going to lightly press these together. And then we're going to roll it under. So this is going to roll underneath all the way to the glass of the bowl of the pie pan. I'm going to roll it, and I'm kind of pinching it at the same time. Because we want to keep all those juices inside. It will make a big mess in your oven if you leave a spot for the juices to come out. In fact, I always cook a pie with some foil underneath the pan just to make sure, because even when I'm careful, there's so many times that the juice just makes its way out. Okay, so once I get this all curled under, I kind of even it out a little bit, right? And then I'm going to press like this. So I'm using these two fingers and this finger together. Now, the point of doing this is to hold this onto the pan. So it needs to kind of come over the edge a tiny bit, because what happens when it gets hot is the shortening contracts and melts. And you don't want all of your pie dough to slip down in the pan. So this is kind of a way to seal this up for moisture's sake, and also help it to grab a hold of the pan so that it stays all nice and upright. So we just go around the edges. Super simple. There you go. I'm gonna make this look a little bit more. You could do anything on this if you wanted to. You could do any kind of design. Just remember that it can't connect at any place, or else you'll just be in pieces. Unless you want to piece it together, and that's fine too. Some people sprinkle a little sugar on the top of theirs. I am trying to lower the sugar on this, so I'm not going to do that. Some people brush it with egg or milk or something, but I like it just the way it is. So this is how you do it. We're going to bake it at 350 until it gets golden brown, and that will vary depending on your oven. So we'll see you in a minute for the final result. All right, I can tell that the pie is done because the juice is bubbling up out of it, and it's looking kind of thick and yummy. It's golden brown, and I don't see any kind of wet looking spots in the crust, so I'm taking it out. All right, it's the next morning, and I wanted to give you a little follow-up. So the pie was delicious. I wanted to show you what it looks like once it's cooled. When it is warm, all of the tapioca will stay kind of liquidy, but once it gets to room temperature, you get this really nice, gooey, soft thickness, kind of a gelatinous type of thing. The tapioca breaks down so you don't have those little kernels anymore. I want to show you up close the flakiness of this crust though, because we did what we were supposed to, and we didn't overdo it, we didn't touch it too much. It's just completely flaky and delicious. So I really can't overemphasize enough. This is my favorite recipe. I've tried many recipes. Some add vinegar, some add eggs. They're just all complicated. This is my favorite, most basic recipe. It always turns out, and you saw I didn't even add the right amount of flour the first time, and sprinkled it in over time, and it still turns out. So anyway, I hope that you try making a pie. I hope you feed it to your friends and your family, and that you all love it.